Have you ever wondered why the economy feels like such a roller coaster? With these incredible highs and then these sudden, scary drops? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the blueprint economists use to make sense of it all.
So how do we understand these massive economic swings? Economists have this really powerful tool called the aggregate supply and aggregate demand model. Now, I know, it sounds a little intimidating, but trust me, by the end of this, you'll see it's a super clear framework for understanding, well, pretty much everything from inflation to unemployment. So let's build it together, piece by piece. All right, here's the plan. First, we are going to build the two core pieces of our model. Then, we'll smash them together to see how they interact. And finally, we'll take our new toolkit out for a spin with some real-world scenarios. Okay, let's kick things off with the engine of the economy, its actual ability to produce stuff. This is what economists call aggregate supply. So think about it like this. What happens to prices when every single factory in the country is running at full capacity? That's the question aggregate supply helps us answer. And it all starts with the connection between what we earn and what things actually cost.
This right here, this is the chain reaction at the heart of the supply side. Let's just walk through it real quick. So, as the economy starts producing more, right? More people get jobs and unemployment drops. That creates a tighter labor market, which gives workers more power to ask for higher wages. And then, what do companies do? To cover those higher wage costs, they have to raise their prices. See? It's like a set of dominoes falling, connecting total output directly to the price level.
And here's what that looks like on a graph, the upward sloping AS curve. Now, pay close attention to that point A. That's what we call the natural level of output. It's kind of like the economy's sweet spot, where the price level in reality matches what everyone expected it to be. It's the long-term place the economy wants to be.
Now this is where things get really cool. If everyone just thinks prices are going to go up, it can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Workers start demanding higher wages to keep up with the inflation they expect, which then forces firms to raise their actual prices. The entire supply curve just shifts up. It's a huge reminder that in economics, what we believe is going to happen is often just as powerful as what's actually happening right now.
All right, so we've got the supply side down. Let's pivot and look at the other half of our model, how the overall price level affects total spending in the economy.
So now we're flipping the coin over. We're asking, how do prices affect the total demand for everything? And we're not just talking about your demand for a cup of coffee. We mean the total aggregate demand for all goods and services, from cars and haircuts to massive government projects, the whole shebang. Okay, so here's the logic. When prices go up, the cash in your wallet just doesn't buy as much, right? The real value of money falls. This has the exact same effect as if there were just less money floating around, and that pushes interest rates up. And when interest rates are higher, it's more expensive for businesses to borrow and invest, which cools down the whole economy. And that, in a nutshell, is why the aggregate demand curve slopes downward.
And here's the really crucial part for the demand side. Governments and central banks can actually shift this entire curve. They have levers they can pull, like changing government spending, cutting taxes, or adjusting the money supply to try and steer the economy. This is where a ton of the political debate about the economy really comes from.
And now for the really fun part. We get to put our two curves together and see how the whole economy actually finds its balance. So where the two lines cross, that's it. That's our short-term equilibrium. It determines the output and the price level for the economy right now. But look closely. The economy isn't at its natural, sustainable level. It's actually in a boom, producing more than it can handle in the long run. You can think of it like an engine that's running way too hot. Okay, so that leads to the obvious question. If the engine is running too hot, how does it cool down? Well, this brings us to what is maybe the most powerful feature of this whole model. Its built-in automatic adjustment mechanism. See, the economy has this incredible way of correcting itself. When it's overheating like this, prices end up rising faster than people expected. So what happens? People adjust their expectations for the future. They start demanding higher wages. This pushes that whole AS curve up, and the economy naturally cools down, sliding back to its sustainable, natural level of output. It's a slow process for sure, but it's powerful. All right, we've built the model. Now let's really put it to the test. Let's take it for a spin and see how it handles three big economic shocks. So let's start with a classic. The central bank decides to pump more money into the economy. In the short run, this feels awesome. Demand goes through the roof, output increases, we get a nice little economic boom. But, as we now know, that can't last. Expectations eventually catch up, the supply curve shifts, and the economy goes right back to its natural output level, but now with a permanently higher price level. The party's over, and all we're left with is inflation.
And this demonstrates a fundamental, bedrock principle of macroeconomics. In the medium run, money is neutral. You can't just print your way to permanent prosperity. All it does in the end is create inflation. Now, that doesn't mean it's useless. It can be a great short-term tool to pull an economy out of a recession. But trying to use it to create a permanent boom, that only ends one way.
Okay, scenario 2 is a bit of a tougher pill to swallow. The government decides to get its budget in order and cuts the deficit. The immediate effect? Ouch, it's a recession. But wait, in the medium run, something really interesting happens. As the economy adjusts, the government isn't borrowing as much money, which causes interest rates to fall. And lower interest rates encourage businesses to invest more. It's the classic case of short-term pain for long-term gain, and it's exactly why these policies are always so politically charged.
Our last scenario is a supply shock, let's say a huge spike in oil prices. This one is a real double whammy. It drives up costs for pretty much every business, which gives us that dreaded thing called stagflation, a nasty combination of a stagnant, shrinking economy and rising prices. And what's worse, this kind of shock can actually damage the economy's productive capacity for good, leaving us all a little bit poorer in the long run.
So, after building this whole model and running these tests, what's the one big idea you should walk away with?
This table really says it all. The single most important takeaway is that timing is everything. Look at that deficit reduction again. In the short run, it shrinks the economy. But in the medium run, it actually boosts investment. Or look at the monetary expansion. You get a great short-term kick, but absolutely no lasting effect on output. It all depends on your time horizon. And that's what makes economic policy so incredibly tricky.
And this, right here, this is why you always see economists arguing with each other. It's not usually because one is right and one is wrong. It's because they're focusing on different time horizons. One economist might be screaming about the short-run pain of a recession, while another is focused on the medium-run benefits of a policy. They both have valid points, and our model helps us see exactly what that trade-off is.
And that leaves us with one last thought. This model, it's an incredibly clear and powerful blueprint for thinking about the economy. But in the real world, things are messy. We don't know exactly how steep these curves are or how quickly people will change their expectations. A good map is absolutely essential for any journey, but it doesn't make the journey easy.